I'm living on two tracks. I have my forward life, my life which is out in the world, where I'm doing fine. But then I have my private life, which is not really fine. The grief is there, the sadness is there, the intense longing for him is there. And I don't let that invade my public life.
Life Reimagined with Stacey Ray.
Before we get into this heartfelt conversation with Ilene, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and follow us so you never miss an episode of Life Reimagined. Hi, Ilene.
Hi,
Thank you
Stacey.
so much.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I really was so appreciative. And I know you've had a pretty rough time, and I certainly can relate. Many of our listeners will know you as the warm and wonderful Marcia Owens from Mr. Belvedere. But your career spans so many memorable roles across television, film, and the stage. It's such a joy to talk with someone whose work has touched so many lives. But beyond that, we also share something very personal in common. Both of us have lost our beloved husbands. It's a heartbreaking connection, but I'm really grateful we could have this conversation about life, loss, and finding strength and meaning in what comes after. And so, for those who don't know, one of the things that I have found since my husband passed away is no one has ever said to me, tell me about him. Like, if they don't know him. Like, they don't really say that. Like, a lot of my friends know him, or if they didn't, they go, oh, he sounds like he was great. But no one's ever said, tell me about him. I would love for you to tell me about Ben.
Well, Ben Lanzarone was music. He was 100% music. He started taking piano lessons at 5 years old and outgrew the first piano teacher when he was 6 years old, who sent him to another piano teacher who he outgrew and then got sent. He finally landed on the right teacher as a young boy and went to the High School of Music and Art. And then he went to Manhattan School of Music and got a couple of degrees. So he was very, very well educated. His schooling was mostly as a classical player.
Yeah.
But all through his youth, into his 20s, maybe early 30s, he also played untold numbers of weddings and bar mitzvahs and private parties and up in the Catskill Mountains. I mean,
Oh my goodness.
he did everything. And that led to a very successful career as a studio musician because those players have to know how to do everything.
Right.
They're the best musicians, and he liked playing all different kinds of music. And we met when we were doing Grease on Broadway. So he was playing piano, musical director, and conducting. So he was really comfortable with that style because he grew up in the 50s, and it was great fun for him. He was a very generous guy with his time. He would play for people for free. He would make tracks for people. He would do demos for people. All the while, he was maintaining a very successful career as a composer, mostly for television shows. He always said he didn't like writing, but he loved having written. So the most fun that we ever had really was the day of recording sessions where I would just see him come alive in front of a big orchestra conducting, and that love of music and love of musicians was really him.
Right.
And he loved me dearly, and he loved our daughter dearly. And he really liked being at home, sitting on the couch, just being with us. Just being. He enjoyed it very much. He was a very quiet man. He was not a talker. You had to pay attention because you knew that there was going to be some zinger coming out that you wouldn't, that you wouldn't want to miss.
Was he funny?
He was funny. Yes, indeed. But very quiet.
Yeah.
He had a hearing problem.
Mhm.
And that really impeded his ability to have a conversation in a restaurant because of all of that outside sound. But his friends adored him and respected him for who he was and who he was as a musician. And after he passed, I started hearing stories about him that I'd never heard before. You know, you're with
Really?
somebody almost 50 years, you think you'd know everything, but
No
no,
kidding.
no.
Yeah.
And a lot of it had to do with his generosity that I really wasn't aware
You
of.
were blown away.
I was. My
Yeah.
daughter and I, people would tell us a story and we'd look at each other like, did you know that about dad? I didn't know that about dad.
No. Right. Right. Exactly.
Yeah, so he was a huge, huge presence in my life, in our lives.
Yeah.
In addition to being a married couple, we were business partners. All the music that I did, all was with him.
Right.
So that's been really hard for me, is to not have not only my life partner, but my musical partner.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I read that he passed away from lung cancer.
Yeah.
So did my husband.
Oh,
And so I'm really sorry that you have to be part of this nasty ass club
yeah,
because my husband passed away 7 years ago. Yeah, I know your husband died February 16th, 2024, correct?
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, I'm sure, based on my own experience, I don't want to assume for you, may feel like yesterday. But I know that one of the things that I really experienced after my husband died was how angry I was at him for going through all the treatment
Ah,
because it diminished him to a shell of himself.
yeah.
My
Yeah.
husband was a retired Marine,
So he was a tough guy.
a tough guy who never quits.
Right.
So when he was diagnosed, and these doctors at Chapel Hill were like, well, we can do the radiation and we can do the chemo and we can do them simultaneously. That's going to be your best chance. And when they said to him, do you have any questions for us? He only had one. When do we start?
Ah,
And, I knew that his pride perhaps was at stake, but it turned into such a horrible experience. I mean, we basically lived in the hospital, and from the time of diagnosis to death was barely 11 months. And after I got over the fact of being angry with him, then I got angry with the doctors,
ah,
and so it took me a really long time to come out of this, almost what I call a paralysis of grief, but I realized maybe it wasn't 100% grief, maybe some of it was anger,
yeah.
I'm still learning, but
Yeah.
did your husband go through treatment and
Yeah. He was fortunately a candidate for immunotherapy. His kind of cancer responds well to immunotherapy. And he
right?
actually, his cancer was stable for quite a
Oh,
while, but
oh,
other things got him. He had a bladder cancer that had to be removed. And bladder cancer and lung cancer, it's a very common
yes,
secondary cancer or another
yes,
cancer that smokers get. That led to a UTI, which I understood going in could happen. So I wasn't, they
right,
do their best, but it's all you need is one little something to go amiss. And then he had several UTIs. You'd get rid of one and
yep.
another one would pop up, which again, I understand is part of being sick. And then he had a stroke.
Oh no,
Yeah. And the stroke, nothing was that bad.
right,
The cancer was stable. The bladder cancer was dealt with. The stroke was not horrible, but he was, as you said, diminished. He
right,
had no strength. For months after we started the immunotherapy, we were in New York when he was diagnosed. I live in Los Angeles. For several months, he
right,
was really doing fine. And then things just started to snowball. Then the final blow was when the lung cancer metastasized to the brain,
Yeah.
and which again is common. I don't know if it's
Very.
common, but it's not
It is
unusual.
common.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it took time for them to figure out. As we were in and out of the ER. I think he was hospitalized 6, 7 times.
Yeah.
And this is the thing that I get annoyed about, the brain radiation, because he had this brain cancer. So they said, well, we can do brain radiation. That's the protocol right now. I got in touch with his regular oncologist. He was at a hospital where his oncologist did not have privileges.
Privileges. Yeah.
Yeah. But I was always in contact with her, and she was great.
Right.
And she said, well, it is protocol for when this happens. And I said to the brain radiation doctor, who I didn't know at all, what do you get from this? He said, well, if you don't do it, he'll be gone in 3 months. So I said to Ben, do you want to do this? And he said, yes. He just was, I mean, he didn't want to go. And the brain radiation was a horror. It
Yeah.
was just terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And he was supposed to have 10. He went through 5, and he said, I can't do this anymore, no more. And his caregiver and I said, thank God.
Right.
I wasn't
Right.
persuading him one way or another about anything. And from that day on, we knew it wasn't going to be long. And I said to him when he told me I don't want to do it anymore, I said, have you been doing this
For
treatment
me.
for me? And he said, well, maybe. And I knew
Mm-hmm.
damn well he was. And I
Yeah.
said, don't ever, ever do anything for me.
Yeah.
You have to do for you. And that lifted some of the pain,
I
not physical pain, but emotional pain that he was in. And
absolutely, and I understand that. Was he on hospice?
yes, then we
Yeah.
went to hospice, and
Yeah.
he lived for a week, telling me during that week he wanted to die. So,
My husband was on hospice, but he was 3 weeks. And actually, what you just said about him doing it for you, he actually told the social worker, I didn't know this till the week before he died, that he had been doing this because he did not want to leave me alone
oh,
by
he was a
myself.
caretaker, right? And he was your caretaker.
He would, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the guilt sets in. Oh my God, he put himself through all of this just to take care of me.
Yeah.
And I would have preferred, you know, we traveled the world, we had a very exciting life, just as
Yeah.
you and Ben had. Not so musically inclined, I can tell you that, but I would have preferred just one more trip. I would have preferred 2 more weeks of quality over those 11 months.
Mhm.
So I think, like, initially, you're just in shock and you're, going through the motions. But your daughter, does she live in LA also?
No, she lives in New York.
What was it like for you when reality really set in and you had to return to your home in LA and you were not with your daughter or your husband?
Well, he was well enough to travel after 3 months in New York. And thank goodness we have an apartment in New York as well as the house here. So we were comfortable and at home in New
Right.
York. But when he was finally given permission to travel, phew, we came home and things sort of were in a normal place for a few months.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, because we were home. And he was still even up in the bedroom upstairs. But I think it was after the stroke that the room that I am in now was
Yes.
his sick room. And when he died, I made it into my new office, and I still have a little Ben vibe, but it doesn't look anything like it did.
No, but you have his presence,
I got the
right?
vibe, right?
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, so we were home, and I called my daughter when he went into hospice, and I said, I know you were coming out on whatever day it was. If there's any way you can push up your trip, that would be great. She said, let me see what I can do. And she didn't make it here for when he died. I think she came like the next day or the day after was
Yeah.
the first that she could get out and be here. So
Yeah.
that call to her, she knew when the phone rang in the middle of the night, it was 3 o'clock in the morning in New York. And any phone call at 3 in the morning is not a good phone call.
No,
It's not
it's
telling you
not.
you won the Nobel Prize. It's not that.
No.
And she said her cat, she said about 4 or 5 minutes before the phone rang, her cat jumped up on the bed and landed on her chest and wouldn't move.
Oh my
Just
gosh.
held her like the cat was hugging
Oh
her.
my gosh.
Yeah. And she said, well,
Wow.
that's odd. So she knew
Yeah.
as soon as the phone rang that dad was gone.
And they were very close.
Yeah, they were close. So
Yeah.
it was, it's no
Yeah.
fun.
No.
But I do have my two brothers that live here,
Right.
and we had coincidentally made a plan at the funeral home at the cemetery that day, the day that he died. He died at 12:05. So we already had an appointment at the cemetery, so we went. So they were magnificent. And then she came shortly thereafter. My friends were here all the time. The reality of his passing was very real because I was with him, holding him when he passed. And it's interesting, Stacey, you probably had the same feeling, is that dead is dead. I saw him change. He looked entirely different. His
Yes.
skin tone changed immediately.
Yes.
So, I don't know when the reality set in because you're living probably in two different
Spheres.
worlds at that
Yes.
point. You've
Yes.
got to get the work done.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter was here for 3 weeks. We wanted to get as much of that work done as possible while she was here
Right.
so we could split up the chores and
Right.
planning the memorial and doing the memorial, doing the cremation, doing the interment. Had a reality, but it was more the reality of I have to do these things because Ben is gone.
Right.
So it kind of got pushed aside a little bit, aside from the times that I was hysterically crying, which was often. But, it's been a year plus and I still can't, I believe it, but I really still don't believe it.
I'm just going to tell you that from my own experience, because that's all I can speak to, is there are still moments where I can be somewhere and swear I just saw him, like
Oh,
in a crowd, or,
really?
things like that. I'll tell you a funny story. I was in St. Bart's a couple of weeks ago, and that was Mike and I's favorite island. And the reason it was our favorite island, and this, besides the fact that it's beautiful and it's, full of yachts, and we love looking at those, there was this little crepe, like hole in the wall crepe place. And we found it the first time we were ever on that island, and we loved it. And my husband was, France has nothing on these crepes, right? So every time we were on an island that had like a hydrofoil or a ferry, we'd go over to St. Bart's just to go to the crepe place. Well, I haven't been there in about 10 years. So you're talking pre-hurricane, pre-pandemic, etc. And 10 years. So I went to St. Bart's and my daughter was with me. And all I kept talking about was, I've got to see if that crepe place is here. And I knew exactly where it would be. And oh my God, it was there. And I mean, I was so excited. And I was like making this little video in my phone. And I was like, and I think he's right here on my shoulder. He's so
Oh,
happy I found our place. Like
oh.
something that, which is probably ludicrous and insignificant to other people, was such a happy moment. And my daughter looked at me and she goes, Mom, I am so glad I was here with you for this.
Oh.
Because she had heard us talk about it all the time. And she was probably like, who cares? But she was there and she saw how that lifted my spirits. And so sometimes it's those moments that get you through more
Mm,
than anything.
wow.
What I think is the hardest for those of us in the widow club is all the firsts,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like how to navigate that.
Yeah. I didn't have problems with the holidays. I expected to,
Yes.
but I didn't. I had This just happened a week or two ago. I haven't sung in public in by myself in over 2 years.
Okay.
My daughter and I did she's a musical theater girl and she's a performer.
Oh,
We did a duet on a variety bill in New York last June, and then I hadn't sung in front of people at all. And I was invited to a party, very dear friend. He said, "Oh, it's going to be fun. We're going to do singing around the piano and, come."
right.
And I said, "All right, I'll come." I didn't know if I was going to know anybody there. Turned out
Right.
I did know a lot of the people.
Yeah.
And I kind of knew he wouldn't mind if I sang. I'll put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so nervous. First of
Oh.
all, singing at parties is the hardest thing
Oh,
ever.
sure, with
Much
people that you
harder.
know. Yeah.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
it's so hard. Give me 5,000 people, I'm
Right. And
fine.
it's
Put me in
theater.
someone's living room, I'm a mess.
Right.
And there was another fabulous, wonderful musical director, pianist there as one of the guests. And when I saw him, I said, maybe I don't know if it'll be okay. I don't know. But I was
Right.
so scared. I had my little music with me, one of my husband's arrangements that I do sing, when I do concert. But I'd never sung it with anybody but Ben, ever.
Right.
And my girlfriend sang, and nobody, because she's really, really good, and nobody wanted to be next. And I said, it's now or never. So I got up and I was shaking and I gave my music to Larry and he looked at the page and he said, because it was so well written and it was all on the page. And if you're good and you know how to do that, it's paradise. And I got up and I sang. I did not sing well, but I got through it. And everybody was very nice because everybody knew my story. And I thanked him profusely. I said, "I'm so glad you were here, and you did so well." He said, "I knew everything that you were going to do." What he didn't say was because everything was on the page. Will you talk
Right.
about your husband taking care of you? He didn't want to
Yeah.
not be there to take care of you. This is how my husband took care of me. Every
He
note that he played was written on the page so that there was no question that
question.
he was taking care of me. But that first was really hard. And I was really kind of proud of myself for taking that step because I didn't know
It's
if
huge.
it was huge
Yeah.
and I didn't know if I was going to be
Yes.
able to do it. And I almost cried when I started singing
I'm sure.
and
That had to be extremely emotional
it
for
was
you.
really emotional, but I got
Yeah.
through it and I felt good that that first was done.
Right.
It was done.
Yes.
So that
That's
was
big.
that was a
Pretty
big one.
big.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I had such a problem with the holidays either because we used to travel a lot. So we weren't, I mean, we had the Thanksgiving was his holiday, which he loved. And,
Right.
that was a little tough, but, it wasn't anything that drug me down, but it was other things. Like, I had never taken my car to be serviced in my life. It took me several years to take my car. I had other people do it, but it took me several years to actually drive into one of those places and get my car serviced and inspected. And the day I did that, I thought I was like the rock star of the world. I was like, oh my God, I did it. I did it. Like, it was so big. I don't know about you. Did your husband handle the finances or did you do that
Oh,
jointly or?
yes, he handled the money, everything.
Yeah.
I I was just blindsided. And I was really feeling overwhelmed about all of that and keeping everything straight and keeping the checkbook straight. We had a business and a personal, and I just it was really making me anxious. And then I
Yeah.
said to myself, wait a minute, you have an accountant. I called up the accountant. I said, I can't do any of this. Will you do it? They said, yeah. Problem solved. Problem solved.
Right.
It was worth paying a little extra just that I didn't have such anxiety over doing things the wrong way.
Yeah.
I'm still no good at it, but they're so helpful to me, and they just
Right.
keep telling me, "Don't worry. Don't worry. It's
Yeah.
okay. We
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
We're happy to help you with this."
Listen, you're not the first. I mean, actually, I handled the finances. I actually used to get upset with him because I'd say, you need to know these things. Like, what if something happens to me?
What is
But
Yeah.
it didn't. So, fortunately, I did. Although I know so many women who have been in the position of not handling their finances and then, like you say, being kind of blindsided because not only do they not know what's going on, but they also don't really know what to do next or what comes
Yeah,
first or
right.
yeah,
Mm,
so I can see where that would be pretty frightening. I think all the firsts that we don't realize are firsts are the hardest ones. Like it'll hit you.
That's really well put. All the firsts we don't know that are gonna be the firsts. That's so smart. Thank goodness my car guys loved Ben, and I just walked over there just to tell him what happened. And, Harry, my guy, said, "Don't worry about anything. Anytime you need anything, just call me. I'll be
Right,
there."
right.
And I kind of knew that, but just to hear him say that, and I
It's
must,
reassuring.
yeah, Stacey, I'm surrounded by people that we've worked with for many years who have been nothing but rocks for me, so that a lot of the things that Ben handled, I'm still able to use his resources.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, because they were our people, our guys. I
Yeah,
mean, the state of insurance in America, okay, it's awful. So while I had no problem with medical insurance because it was all Medicare and we had a supplemental plan, so that was all fine. I was not bankrupted by the healthcare system at
right.
all. But my homeowner's insurance, I was dropped by my insurance company. I'm still not with them for fire. They're trying to get rid of everybody for fire in
Everybody,
California. So I'm in the state-run plan, which they tell you is no good and very expensive, but you have no
you have
choice.
no choice,
Yeah.
right?
So I had to navigate through all of those decisions by myself.
That is scary.
It's scary, especially with insurance, because
Right,
I assumed we were paid up on everything because we were so good at paying the bills,
right,
but it was a matter of checking and making sure.
right,
And do I have homeowners? And what's my umbrella? And what's this? And when do I
right.
pay you? And all of that was hard. It was hard to make those calls. As hard as
Yes.
it was for you to drive into the car place,
Yeah,
that's as hard as it was for me to start making those calls.
I understand.
Yeah.
And for me, making the phone calls is petrifying to me. And there are a lot of times I've had my daughter do it. My poor daughter. I mean, she's was fine helping me, but I felt like I was putting an undue burden on her because I don't even know why I got so afraid of talking to live people. Like I'm afraid of what they're going to say and I'm not going to understand what they're talking about and I just can't deal with that right now. And
100%. I don't
yeah,
like talking on the phone anyway.
yeah, me
So all
neither.
and she was here, like I said, for 3 weeks after Ben died, and I would make her make the phone calls. I said, I'll do the ones to the entities that I know, so we split it up, but and she doesn't like make phone calls either, but she did it and she did it for
Right.
me. And she
Yeah.
absorbed a lot of my grief.
Oh,
And I
yes.
thank her all the time. I say, I know you're putting off your grieving in order to help me get through this horrible, horrible stage.
Yeah. I think that's true for Sammy as well. She was so strong. I mean, I was at a point where I mean, those first few months, I don't even really remember. Well, first of all, my husband was buried at Arlington. And so he died in the beginning of November, but we weren't even able to bury him till the middle of February.
Oh,
And
uh,
so it's like everything's on hold, right? Like you can't really like put this to rest in any way because you still have the actual funeral.
Right.
several months down the road.
Wow.
And so after that, I thought I was, doing okay, but apparently not. I would get texts. Have you eaten today? Have you taken a shower today? Because I was just literally a big nothing.
Yeah.
That's what I felt like, a big nothing.
Big nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
How long were you married?
25 years,
Uh,
which is, I was thinking about you being married for 46 years. So you're with Ben longer than you were not with Ben.
yeah. Yeah.
And
Mhm.
that was not true for me. I mean,
Mhm.
I had a longer life before him.
But that's a substantial amount of time.
Well, it is, right? And so I wanted to ask you this. One of the things that I have found, and especially over the last, he's been gone 7, so I would say over the last 4 years for sure, is it's been a work in progress for me to learn. Not only, I hate that cliche, who am I? But what do I like? What do I not like? What do I want? What do I not? Because I no longer knew, do I like this because Mike liked it? Do I like it because we did it all the time? Do I actually want to do that? And I'm still there on certain things. Have you been through that at all?
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
My therapist asked me one day, what's easier for you now since he's gone? She said, there has to be something that's easier. And I said, you know, I don't always have to check with somebody about whether I like something or not,
right.
which is exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like, did we like to go to Benihana or did he like to go to
And I
Benihana?
went along and decided this is fine. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That was my question too.
And I had to, for insurance purposes, do a lot of work on the exterior of my house
Right.
because they were being so picky. They
Yes.
said I needed a paint job on my house and they wouldn't insure me unless I got my house painted. Now that's a huge project that costs a lot of
Lot
money.
of money.
Yeah. So I had to do it and I could do it the way I wanted to do it.
Right.
I don't have to see what he likes. I kind of know what he would have liked, but
Right.
is that relevant anymore? What
Yeah.
he would have liked? And I just finished a big renovation of our bathroom that's attached to our bedroom. And we were going to do it before. And then COVID and, everything. And so we didn't do it. But I still had to do the project. And I said, am I picking this tile because I like it? Or because I thought he would like it. I gave myself permission kind of early in the process to do what I liked and not worry about what he would have liked or what we would have liked.
I think that's awesome.
It was a huge step. It was a really huge,
Yes.
and it's done and I really think he would like it. But
Yeah.
it's different. I know it's very different from what he would have
What
wanted.
he would have said. Yeah.
Yeah.
I bought my first house all by myself exactly a year ago. And that was my liberation moment because every room, every closet, everything in this house is about me.
It's about you. Yeah.
And for 5 seconds, I felt a little guilty. And then I was like, no, I'm not going to feel guilty.
No.
This took me so long to get to this point to even be brave enough to do it. Interesting thing, I painted, but I love color. So I had all kinds of stuff painted in the house. And I sent a picture to one of my friends of my living room kitchen area. And she wrote me back, it says, it looks just like the colors you had in Delray, which is where my husband and I had our house. And I looked at it and I said, oh my God, I painted it Mike's color without even realizing it. I love it, but it's just, it made me laugh. The rest of it is not. But, I said, well, apparently there is part of him here.
And some things you like together. Some things you chose because you both went, I love
Love
that.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Hold that thought. We'll be right back after this message.
Ready to trade ordinary for extraordinary? At Sisterhood Travels, we turn bucket lists into unforgettable adventures with group travel specifically for women 45 and up. Picture yourself exploring vibrant cultures and making lifelong friends along the way. Join our community of fearless women and start your next chapter full of joy, discovery, and sisterhood. Visit sisterhoodtravels.com and say yes to your next adventure.
Let's dive right back in. Here we go. I was thinking about all of our travels because we traveled to like over 80 countries together. That was big for us. That was our jam, as I call it. And so somebody asked me, and I get asked fairly frequently, where's your favorite place? And, where's the best place you ever went? And I realized that my favorite place I've ever been was with him, but we jointly loved it. And that was Iceland. We were going there,
Really?
yeah, before it was ever cool. People would ask, why would you go there? There's a million reasons. But I realized that actually we always did agree on where we went and our style of travel. We were like really perfect travel partners. But yeah, like food, that's a plus. I never ever ever have to cook
Yeah, I don't cook
anything.
anymore. I
Yeah,
don't cook. And I love to, I mean, I loved our dinners at,
me too. Were you dinner party people? Did you throw a lot of dinner parties?
I don't do it as often, but I still would always rather have people here
Yeah,
than
then
go to
go to a
somebody
restaurant.
else's house or go to a restaurant. I'm
Yeah,
always saying, why don't we just come here? Yeah,
right.
we used to have a lot of dinner parties. Yeah.
Yeah. Was he the cook or you were the cook?
Oh, he was so proud of himself if he could open a can of soup.
Oh,
He grew up an Italian prince, his his folks were Sicilian,
yeah,
American Sicilian,
yeah.
and he was not the firstborn, but the golden child. And yeah, he didn't know how to do anything. He once asked me which one is the washer and which one is the dryer. I said, "You are so smart. You figure it out."
You
I'm not
figure that
telling
out.
you that.
Yeah,
No, but I cooked. And during the pandemic, I cooked almost every single night. And I wrote down every meal that we had.
yeah.
And he would have favorites. And he'd say, put that one on the specials.
Mike was Mike would say that to me. He goes, "This one's a keeper." Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I honestly, when he would try to cook, it was horrifying. I mean, the one great thing is he would make me the best omelets in the world. But aside from that, yeah, he was obsessed with coffee. That was really his thing. Coffee. And that was one of the things I was laughing about the other day because I'm very much a neatnik and I hate things like everywhere. And it used to drive me crazy that he'd have his 8 million coffee machines and coffee grinds all over my counters. And I said, there's not a single coffee grind on my counters. I
Wow.
love this. But
Wow.
then I had this little twinge and said, you know what? I would be fine if it was there again. I really
Exactly.
would. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Y-
find, and tell me if this is true for you. I think about this a lot, and I've been through it a lot in therapy. I must say that I started therapy when Ben was still in the hospital before he came home because I felt different. I didn't feel like myself, and
Yeah.
how debilitating being and I
Yes.
was there 24/7 essentially because he really couldn't hear
Here. And you had to be his ears and his advocate.
and
Yeah.
he wanted me there and I loved him and I wanted to be with him. My daughter said, "You're different." And I felt different. It was a whole other feeling. And the social worker in the hospital said, "I think you need help." And I said, "Okay."
Okay.
I'd never been in therapy in my life. And I asked a friend, a good friend who's a therapist, I said, "Do you know someone who would be good for me?" She said, "Let me think about it." And she said, I got her. I know exactly who you should go to. And she was so, and still continues to be so important to my being able to get through this.
Yeah.
She asked the right questions. She lifted me up when I needed to be lifted. She made me understand what was going on and just to talk through all of these issues that we're talking about and others, of course.
Yeah.
But I often say to her, I'm living on two tracks, and tell me if you live on two tracks too. I have my forward life, my life which is out in the world where I'm doing fine and I laugh, I have a good time, I go to lunch, I have a life. But then I have my private life, which is not really fine. The grief is there, the sadness is there, the intense longing for him is there. And I don't let that invade my public life,
Yeah.
except sometimes with a friend or,
Yeah.
if I'm feeling particularly safe or particularly gloomy.
Yeah. And I do understand that completely. And I think, yes, I do live on two tracks. And I didn't even realize until about a month ago that 7 years later, I still have pillows lying down Mike's side of the bed. I was like stunned. Like this was some new revelation. Like I didn't realize that every night I do that. And
Oh,
yet I do.
uh-huh.
And I was apologizing to someone the other day and I said, actually, it was my daughter, now that I think about it. And I said, I'm sorry if I talk about him all the time, but how can you spend your life with someone and everything you've done with them? Your whole life is about you and him. How do you just stop talking about them? You can't.
You can't.
And my stories are going to be my stories, and my life is going to be what my life was. I do not feel like I was as healthy as you in a sense of getting therapy. My daughter tried to convince me to go to, she actually worked for hospice at the time.
Really?
And she basically kind of browbeat me into going to a grief support group. And I hated it. And I hated it because, A, I'm not a group person like that. I'm not so open about those things. But I sat there and I felt like I was on a TV show and I almost wanted to burst out laughing because all of them were like on this wine fest. Like, oh, like, and I was like, I thought I was going to come here. I must have had the wrong expectation of really what grief support was like. And I'm not bashing it, don't get me wrong, because for a lot of people, it's their lifeline and
Mm-hmm.
it does help them. It just didn't work for me.
Mm-hmm.
But to this day, I have never been able, willing, open to actually go to therapy. I've decided in many ways that I cured myself when I think deep down I know I haven't, you know.
Yeah.
And I applaud you for doing that.
It made and continues to make such a big difference in my life. And I'm also on an antidepressant, which I
Yes,
think,
I am too.
yeah, it helps tremendously. I could
Yeah.
feel some of the scattered brain thing, the widow brain, which I still have, become a little
Yeah.
more focused. And
Right.
I also had no interest in doing group grief therapy. I
Right.
also am not, I'm a very private person. You wouldn't know it from this conversation that we're having, but I feel very safe having it with you.
I feel safe with you as
Yeah.
well.
My friends would always tell me, you never tell us anything. You never tell us what's going on with you. And I say, I'm
I get that all the time. You're so close-mouthed.
so
Everything's a
close,
secret with you. And I'm like, I just,
but you love me anyway.
exactly. And like my friends will say, I haven't heard from you in months. I don't know if you're okay. I don't know if you're falling apart. And I'm like, I'm fine.
Hmm.
I'm just busy. I'm doing this or that. But also, I don't always want to talk about it.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
want to talk about how I feel. I guess my question's always been, what is it going to do for you who is in your happy marriage? What do you need me to bleed you dry for? That I feel like that. And so now I'm trying to see things from different perspectives. Like, it's okay to talk to your friends even if they don't understand. But I think there's also this expectation, Eileen, and I wonder if you feel this too, like, okay, when are they going to stop milking that?
Oh,
Time to move on with your life. There is no deadline on grief
Yeah.
or loss, you
Mm.
know? I mean, Mike was my best friend, just like Ben was your best friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then to add insult to injury, I suppose, let's talk about Bob Euchre.
How about that? I lost them within a year of each other. Ben died first,
Yeah.
almost a year. Bob died January 15th, something like that,
Yeah.
of 25.
Yeah.
Ben died I mean, they died like a year
Right.
apart. And it was
That's like two
sad.
BAMs and yeah.
I lost two husbands in one
Right.
year.
Right.
Of course, it's a very different connection, but the connection was very real
And strong, I
and
imagine.
strong.
Yeah.
And my connection to Bob's wife was also very strong. Or,
Right.
when people talk about, oh, our show is like a family. Well, it's true. It's
Right.
true. If you're in a show where everybody loves each other and gets
Right.
along, you really
Right.
do become, for the time you're working together, a family. What's been great about our show is that the kids and I, and Bob and his wife Judy, and some other people that worked on the show still are together. And the kids and I, especially, they're very protective of me and checked in constantly when Ben was sick. And we all just went together, the three kids and I, who are the remaining cast members. There was a big memorial for Bob in Milwaukee a couple of weeks
Oh,
ago, which was fantastic. There's no way to describe what an icon he was in Wisconsin.
especially
He,
with the baseball, right?
54 years announcing for the Brewers. 54 years. So we all traveled together, the three kids and me. We're on the same plane, and
Wow.
we had activities, we had interviews that we did. We went to the
Yeah.
memorial together, and we were able to see Judy, who is his wife, which I was most concerned about,
Right.
being the wife that's been through it. But she was
Right.
married to someone that really belonged to the public.
Right.
And I kept saying, do you feel like you have any
Right.
control over what's happening? Are you being taken care of? I
And
love
was
you so
she?
much. And it adds another layer that I really
Oh, I can't
can't,
imagine.
can't even
No.
fathom. When it's somebody that famous, and there are all sorts of famous athletes and people who spoke at his memorial, and she felt well taken care of, I will say, by baseball. They did take good care of her. But it's not the same as when you're a public person.
Right.
The repercussions are not quite the same for your family as they are for just a
Right.
plain family. She was really happy to see us, the Belvedere people. In fact, she invited us to dinner when we landed. We went right over to a place where she was having dinner with her family and us. And we were the only other people besides her family. And
Oh,
it was I said, I know I felt that way about her. I know she
right.
loved us, but I didn't really
Think it was
I
quite that.
quite that. And it was
Yeah.
such an honor, and it just made me feel so connected
Special.
and special. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that whole period that we were doing the show was a very special, special time.
What was that like
Oh,
being in that show? First of all, I gotta tell you, I'd probably have to go back. I don't even know if it's on now where I can
yeah.
watch it.
It's on YouTube, I'm sure.
Yeah. But I loved that show.
Did you really?
Oh my gosh, yes. I loved that show.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely. I never miss an episode. And of course, who could not have loved Mr. Belvedere?
I knew Christopher Hewitt before we did the show. He
Yeah.
directed me in a musical
Ah,
in New York. Well, actually, it
yeah.
was in Paramus, New Jersey, but it
I
wasn't.
lived right near Paramus.
There
Yeah.
you go. There was a theater in the Paramus Mall that used to be a bowling alley. And they made
Wow.
it into a theater. So it was very long and skinny.
Yeah.
So at the auditions, the final auditions for Belvedere, he was there, and we just clung on to each other and said, we have to get this job together. What could be
Yeah.
more fun than being together?
Right.
It was probably the best professional experience of my life, certainly in my TV life. Number one, to know that you've got a job for a while.
Right.
and to be working with people that you really like.
Yeah.
And for such a family atmosphere, the schedule for someone like me, I had a baby. My daughter was
Right.
15 months old when we did the pilot, where in those kind of multi-camera comedies,
Right.
you don't work the same kind of hours that you do on film shows, which you can start at 6 in the morning and then not get home until the night. I've
Right.
done those too. But we were basically a 10 to 5 job, maybe 10 to 6. So I could always take her to school, to, preschool and everything. My husband worked at home. He could always pick her up.
Right.
We worked 3 weeks, then we'd have a week off for hiatus. I mean, it was perfect for people who had a family. It just was fun. I mean, Stacey, you're in a job where your job is to go in and laugh. That's your job, is to laugh at the jokes.
And
And what could be better?
what could be better
What could
than
be better?
being
Right?
paid to laugh,
Yeah.
right? Like,
And
yeah.
they buy you pretty clothes,
Yeah.
and you never wear the same thing twice,
Do you ever get to keep the clothes or
Yeah, I was able to. The costume designer, whose name was Bill Ballou, who was tangentially, interesting fact, Elvis Presley's designer. He created
oh
the
my
jumpsuits
goodness.
and the big belts. That was Bill Ballou.
No way.
Yes way. He had
Oh
a
my
he
gosh.
had a little blue Mercedes convertible that
Uh-huh.
Elvis gave him. So he was just a fabulous, fabulous guy. And I wasn't allowed to keep everything. I don't know
Right.
why. Who else was going to wear it?
I
But I was
know.
allowed to keep whatever I really liked.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
had some pieces that I really liked. He said, just put them in your dressing room. Don't tell anybody. Just take
Yeah.
'em."
Yeah. Were you sad when the show went off the air?
Oh, yeah. Really sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not as bad as a death, don't get me wrong.
No, I
I
get
still
it.
had a nice big full life, but it was
Right.
over. My professional stability was over. I didn't
Right.
have a place to go Monday through Friday. It
Right.
was it was jarring and sad, and
Right.
I didn't like that it was over. I still don't like that it was.
Yeah. Would you go back to television now if you were offered?
Yeah. I don't
Yeah.
get offered, but sure I would. I love that form. It's great for people who have a stage background because you're actually doing a little play in front of a studio
Right.
audience.
Right.
You don't have the pressure of not being able to stop if you have to.
Right. Are you still teaching?
No. And that's part of the widowhood. Ben was our music guy. He was the
Right.
accompanist, he was our musical director, he
Right.
did tracks for people, he was everything. We were partners in that.
Right.
So I haven't taught now for over 2 years. And our prices were really low because Ben and I considered this community service.
Right.
We weren't trying to make a killing on this class. We just
Right.
loved doing it, and we charged a very nominal fee. So now it's interesting that you should ask about class. I am now finally at the point where I am looking for another accompanist for class. And I've
Oh, that's
been,
so
yeah,
brave.
it was a big step, but my students keep saying, when are we going to go back again? I say,
Right.
I just, it's hard.
Right.
So I've got calls out to several people waiting to see who gets back to me and waiting to see if I can afford it.
And
You know?
if you can truly sync with them, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's a big step, but one that I'm anxious. It gave me and Ben both a little structure.
Right.
We knew that on Saturday from 1 to 4, we were responsible for our students.
Right.
And sometimes if we had a lot of people, we'd teach on Saturday and Sunday. I don't
Sunday,
think
yeah.
that's going to happen right now. I'm going to start small again.
Start small, yeah.
Yeah, with my closest
Right.
students. But I'm really ready. I miss it, and I miss the structure, and I miss the music. I miss helping people get better.
I'm going to throw this out there because, again, I can't speak for anyone but myself, but two things happened to me after my husband died that I thought were very profound. I've always been avid music lover, and for a very long time I could not listen to any music. And then I found I could no longer read. He and I were both avid readers,
Ah,
and we would read for hours. I mean, we would sit on two separate couches. We'd be reading totally different things. He
yeah.
hated what I liked. I hated what he liked, but we loved to read. To this day, I have trouble reading because I find it hard to focus, and I don't know why. Now, my love of music is back
Good,
for sure.
good.
But it surprised me that those two things were the first to disappear. Did you have that happen?
That's interesting. Music disappeared while Ben was sick. People always said, "Why aren't you playing music for him?" I said, "He doesn't want to listen to music. It depresses him. It doesn't uplift him. He's
Oh,
listening and realizing he can't do that anymore."
right.
And it was hard for him. I'd play him stuff that I thought he would love, and he would be okay for a little while, again, because I think he was trying to please me.
Yeah,
And then he would say, "No more, no more."
yeah.
So the music took time for me as well to come back. And one of the reasons I didn't play a lot of music after he passed was music is very triggering for me.
Yes.
Certain things, certain pieces, I'll just
Right.
start crying, or I'll be listening to music in the car and I'll want to go, "Oh, that phrase is the same phrase that he used over here," whatever. And
And he's
I have
not there
nobody
to,
to talk, I don't have anybody to
right,
talk to about it. And
right.
it's like, oh, no.
Yeah,
This is so, yeah, I'm absolutely bringing it back in. It's not as raw for me anymore as it was. And I stay away from some of the stuff that
yeah,
really gets me.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I I understand that because I'm still there. I mean, sometimes I feel like, okay, even I say to myself, it's 7 years, like, let's move it along. But, one of the things I always get asked, and I'm just going to be point blank and ask you, do you ever foresee yourself getting involved again with someone?
No,
Yeah, me neither.
no, I'm really not interested. And I
No,
can't
I'm
see,
not.
especially at my age. So I'm 76 years old. Who am I going to go out with? Another guy who's going to get sick? I mean,
That's what I say. I don't want some sick old man who
yeah,
wants me to like cook and clean for him. He can
no,
get his children or a paid worker to do that
yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
But the truth is, and this is going to be a little obnoxious maybe, but I feel like I had my love affair.
yeah,
I had my story.
yeah.
I had the man of my dreams. It wouldn't even be fair to someone else because all I'm going to do is compare them.
Yeah, yeah, that's really true, and it's kind of emotional for me even thinking about that.
Yeah.
Um,
And
I
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you
it's
cry or anything.
absolutely fine,
Yeah.
absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and in talking to again talking to my therapist, she said a lot of women who are widows, most of them have no desire to go back and do it with somebody new,
Right.
because you don't have that lifetime's worth of love and devotion that keeps
Right.
you going
Right.
when someone gets sick. I
Right.
mean, for you and me, it was, I love this guy. I've built a life with this person. Of course, I'm going to be there for him. I love him with all my heart. I don't want anybody else taking care of him. I mean,
No.
aside from my brilliant caregiver, Mary, who was, oh my God.
Thank God for her.
Oh my God. Mary was, I can't say enough. Anyway, but how, how can you begin to think about that?
No.
How could I? I have,
Right.
I'm not saying you shouldn't. If you feel it, if you feel the
No,
buzz
I agree with you.
and
If
you're
that's
into it,
your,
hey,
if you need
go
that and
for it.
want that, I think that's
Yeah.
great. For me, I have built a new life for myself.
You started a business. I mean, you've got a business. How was that? Like making that determination that you were going to turn your love of travel into like a business. How long did that decision come until it came to fruition? If you
Well,
don't mind my asking.
no, thank you for asking that. The truth is that, after the first couple of years when I kind of like started to lift out of the, as you call it, the widow fog and the grief and the paralysis, I kept wondering, what do other women do when they want to travel? I didn't want to stop traveling. And my friends either had no money or they didn't have the time or they were working
Or
or
they were still married.
they were married and or focused in on their grandchildren, things like that. And I was like, there's got to be other women out there like me. And so literally with like almost no real thought, I said, I'm going to start Sisterhood Travels and we can just, get together and go on these trips. And, I have all this experience, in the travel business and I can create these awesome trips. And wow, it grew exponentially, I would say almost overnight, 100% word of mouth. And Ilene, there are millions of us out there, women over 50 who want to make new friends. I mean, we don't live in a great society anymore where you can make friends with your neighbors or whatever. Everything's electronic. How do you find people at this age with common interests? And my friends would say to me, "Why would you want to do this at your age?" And I said, "Correct me if I'm wrong, but whether I have this business or not, I'm still going to be this age. So I can either do something or I can shrivel away and disappear." And I have a real, real problem with women our age feeling we're supposed to be invisible instead of invincible. I'm not willing to disappear and shrink. And so I said, I've got to have purpose too. Here's the irony of it all. The women who travel with us have no idea how much they saved me. They love to tell me what I've done for them, but they have no idea what they've done for me. And that's what makes it all so magical.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Mike's had a lot to do with it, honestly. I think there's been some divine intervention from St. Michael to, help me along the way because it's not always easy. But when you see the friendships that all these women make and the life skills they build and the confidence they build, and they start believing in themselves and that life can be anything they imagine it to be, no matter what your age, that's where the joy comes from, for me.
Yeah, and let me tell you, it's not that different from teaching. Because most of my students, I don't have young students who want to be a star.
Right.
I aimed for grown-ups who missed having music in their lives. So people that maybe were music majors in college and realized that that wasn't going to work out, or people who just always loved to sing and didn't. So those are the people basically that come to me. And like you, I can't tell you how many times they said, "You changed my life.
Yeah.
You just changed my life. I have so much more confidence. I can go out and try things. I love having the music. I can get up in front of people and present." And it's very similar to what you're talking about. It's our community service in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like I finally really have purpose. And believe me, I don't feel like my life was a waste. I've done a lot of things in my life, but this is the special part. I hear people say all the time, "Oh, I'm in my third act, I'm in my final act, I'm in this." I'm like, listen, I don't know what act I'm in. I'm just taking it day by day and I'm loving it, So what do you think is the next step for you in your journey to finding Ilene?
It's getting back into music. It really is.
Yeah.
And it's having the courage to start working on a new show that's just for me and a new musical director. I'm starting to really think about how to make it happen.
Right.
And I think that's going to be the defining thing, is when I can do this by myself and with
Yeah.
another person who's not my husband.
Right.
And to understand that it's not going to be the same.
It's not going to be the
It's
same.
going to be different, but it can be equally as excellent.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's next steps for me. Yeah.
Well, when you do get your show put together, I will be there with bells on. You just have to
Oh,
tell me when and where, and I will be sure to be there.
yeah, because you don't mind traveling.
No, I don't mind at all. And so I want other women who are widows, from my perspective, I want them to stop feeling like they have a clock and a timer on how long they're allowed to grieve and how long they're allowed to think things out. I want them to know it's on your timetable. It's all about how you can make it through, and baby steps, baby steps, baby steps.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a more recent widow, but do you have any words of advice that you'd like to tell other widows?
Take it easy on yourself. I've found myself at times saying, "You have been laying on this couch for 3 hours. What are you doing?" And I'm an inherently lazy person, so I had a hard time teasing out my normal laziness from my, as you said, my paralysis.
Right,
And I finally said to myself, it doesn't matter if it's your natural laziness or your grief.
right,
It doesn't matter. If you need to lay on this couch for 3 hours, it's okay.
right.
And I had to learn to be kind to myself and not expect anything, which isn't to say that I'm not accomplishing things and getting
No, I
things done
understand. Yeah,
in my private life. But in
sure.
my grief life, I've stopped trying to figure out, well, how long is this going to take? Because I know it's never going to go away. And there's always going to be an emptiness,
Yeah,
but it doesn't have to take over everything.
right.
And just parent myself. What would mommy say? Mommy would say, it's going to be all right. Take your time. Everything's not going to be fine for, right away.
No,
But just try to be good to yourself and don't beat yourself up if you think you're not moving as quickly as another person in your circle who is going through this.
yeah.
And don't judge them if you think that they're taking too long. It's,
Bingo,
yeah, it just,
bingo. It's,
it is what it is. And another little life philosophy I came to while going through the beginning times of grief, a
mhm,
girlfriend of mine died, and her husband dealt with grief very differently than I. And some people are saying, I wonder why he's doing that. Why is he doing that? And I finally said to myself, he's doing what he can do.
right,
He's doing what he's capable of doing.
right.
And nobody should expect anything else from him except what he's doing. And I've turned that into a lot of things. I now look at a lot of things. Why would somebody
Oh,
wear that dress?
oh, yeah.
Because they like it. It's none of your business.
Yeah,
It's
right. Like, what do I care? It's
what
not
do I
affecting my
care?
life, right?
I don't care.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm happy for her that she likes the dress. I've just become less and less judgmental than I've ever been in my life. Ever.
yeah. I struggle with that sometimes. And honestly, I notice it when I'm just extremely tired and
Ah.
I'm having a lot of stress, like maybe with work or whatever. I find that the scale of judgment goes up. But then when I'm like calm and everything, I'm like, hey, whatever, I don't
Yeah,
care.
but you're
Like
also
that's
from New Jersey, so
yeah, I'm a Jersey girl, so what do
you
you
gotta
expect?
factor that in a little bit.
And listen, let's be real here. We just went this whole time and I never said the F word once. Okay?
And I didn't say any words.
Yeah.
Not one.
See? So
We did
so
good.
it's a success. That's exactly right. I seriously cannot thank you enough. I
Wow.
know that opening up about this, and as you said, like we're private people and being able to talk about it and just have a conversation, I really think it's going to be so helpful for so many women. I think a lot of women feel guilty that they are still grieving and they're made to feel guilty. And I don't want that for
Right.
them, you know? I don't
Right.
want it for us.
Yeah.
So, but if you ever need someone to just listen, I'm your girl.
I
I'm
appreciate
here.
that. And may I say, it goes both ways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're just so lovely, Ilene. Thank
Oh,
you so much.
thank you. This was great. I love
Thank
talking
you.
to you. It's
Oh,
wonderful to have the time to have
yeah,
lengthy conversation
yeah,
about something that's so close to both of us.
it is. And like I said, I'm sorry you're in the club, but um, it is what it is, I
It is what it
suppose.
is. And
Yeah,
and somebody said the grief can be commensurate with the amount of love that you had.
that's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah, a great note to end on. If you liked this show, please be sure to like us, follow us, subscribe to us, give us a review, because it really helps grow our podcast.